Hey everyone, get ready for a deep dive. We're tackling a big one today, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
It's a classic for a reason. Definitely changed the way people think about building businesses.
Totally. I mean, who would have thought that a book about startups would end up impacting everything from tech to, like, the restaurant industry?
Right. It's crazy how these principles are everywhere now.
That's like ghost kitchens, food delivery apps, they're all about testing and iterating quickly, right out of the Lean Startup playbook.
And Rise would love that. He's all about challenging the traditional idea of what a startup is. It's not just about Silicon Valley and venture capital.
Yeah, it's like he uses this example of a guy named Mark,
Right.
who's working within a huge company, but still applying these entrepreneurial principles.
An entrepreneur, he calls it.
Exactly. And Mark's story shows how these ideas can work anywhere.
It's like he had all the pieces, all the potential, but needed the right framework to make it all come together. That's what the Lean Startup provides. It's a roadmap.
And the key to navigating that roadmap, it seems, is getting comfortable with uncertainty, which, let's be honest, can be a little scary.
Well, Rees makes it clear startups are all about confronting the unknown. It's like, who are your customers? What do they actually want? How do you build a successful business when you don't have all the answers up front?
And that's the heart of the matter, isn't it? This isn't just about having a brilliant idea. It's about figuring out how to navigate the unknown.
Precisely. It's about having a system for testing, learning, and adapting as you go. It's about validated learning, which is something we're going to dive into much deeper.
Validated learning. I like the sound of that. It's like taking those first few steps into uncharted territory, but with a compass and a good pair of boots.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be exploring next, the key principles of the Lean Startup methodology and how they can help you navigate the exciting world of building something new.
So validated learning, huh? Sounds like we're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right. It's more strategic than that. It's about testing your assumptions, gathering evidence, and using that to make informed decisions.
It's like instead of just assuming people want a certain feature, you're actually going out there and finding out if they do.
Yeah.
And not just asking them, but actually seeing how they behave.
Exactly. It's about real-world data, not just gut feelings.
Yeah.
And the beauty of validated learning is that it applies whether you're building a tech giant or, say, a bakery.
A bakery. Okay, now you're speaking my language. Give me an example.
All right, imagine you're a baker, right? And you're convinced that the world needs a cronut muffin hybrid. You're calling it the Cronuffin.
I'd try it, but go on.
So you could just bake 1,000 Cronuffins, put them on display, and hope for the best. Or you could bake a small batch, offer free samples, and see how people react. Do they love it? Are they asking for more? Or are they, like, politely taking a bite and then discreetly tossing the rest in the trash?
I see where you're going with this. The data doesn't lie.
Exactly. And that's validated learning in action. It's about getting out of the kitchen, so to speak, and testing your assumptions in the real world. And the framework that Rees provides for doing this is the build, measure, learn loop.
Build, measure, learn. Okay, break it down for me.
It all starts with build. You create a minimum viable product, or MVP, which is the simplest version of your idea that you can put in front of customers.
So in the bakery example, that would be like a small batch of Cronuffins instead of mass production.
Exactly. It's about testing the waters before diving in headfirst.
Makes sense. So you build, you test the waters. Then what?
Then comes measure. You carefully track how customers interact with your MVP. Are they buying it, using it, telling their friends about it?
Data is key here, right?
Absolutely. You need to be collecting data like it's going out of style, because that data is what's going to inform your next move.
Which is?
Learn. This is where you analyze the data you've collected and see if your initial hypotheses were right.
So you might learn that people love the taste of your Cronuffins, but they're a little too messy to eat on the go.
Exactly. And that learning might lead you to make a pivot.
A pivot, like a graceful pirouette in the world of baking.
Well, maybe not a pirouette, but definitely a change in direction. Maybe you tweak the recipe to make the Cronuffins less crumbly. Or maybe you realize that they'd be a better fit as a dessert item than a breakfast pastry.
Interesting. So it's not about being married to your original idea, but being open to changing course based on what you learn.
Precisely. And Rees has a great example of this in the book with a company called IMVU.
IMBU, what do they do?
They're in the instant messaging space. They were trying to shake things up with these cool 3D avatars.
Sounds interesting. What happened?
Well, their initial plan was to create an add-on for existing messaging platforms.
Seems like a logical approach, right?
You'd think so. But it flopped hard. They put a ton of work into building this add-on, and nobody wanted it.
Ouch. That's gotta sting. What went wrong?
They realized their initial assumption about what people wanted was wrong. They thought people wanted 3D avatars to connect with their existing friends.
But that wasn't it.
Nope. Turns out, people were more interested in using IMVU to meet new people. The avatars gave them a sense of anonymity and made it easier to connect with strangers online.
Fascinating. So what did they do?
They pivoted. They scrapped the add-on and focused on building their own independent platform designed for meeting new people.
And it worked.
Big time.
Right.
IMVU went from practically 0 users to millions. All because they were willing to challenge their assumptions and adapt based on what they learned.
So IMVU really shows how powerful a pivot can be. But pivoting isn't always easy, right? I mean, it takes guts to walk away from an idea you've poured your heart and soul into.
It definitely does. But sometimes it's the only way to avoid going down with a sinking ship. And that's where Risch's concept of innovation accounting comes in.
Innovation accounting. It's like, we're not just looking at traditional business metrics here.
Right. It's about focusing on metrics that actually measure how much you're learning and how close you are to finding a product market fit.
So instead of getting caught up in vanity metrics like downloads or website traffic, you're looking at things like customer engagement, retention, how often people are actually using your product.
Exactly. It's about understanding what truly resonates with your customers and using that data to inform your decisions.
And this brings us back to that whole idea of building in small batches. Instead of going all in on a massive product launch, you're constantly testing and iterating based on customer feedback.
Precisely. It's like, think about it. Would you rather bake 100 cakes before realizing you forgot a key ingredient, or adjust the recipe after a test batch?
Okay, small batches make sense, but what happens when things go wrong? Because let's be honest, in the world of startups, things rarely go according to plan.
That's where another key principle comes in, the 5 whys.
The 5 whys. It sounds almost deceptively simple.
It is simple, but incredibly powerful. It's about asking why, not just once, but 5 times to get to the root cause of a problem.
So instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on a symptom, you're like a detective trying to uncover the real culprit.
Exactly. And Ries shares a great anecdote about IMVU using the 5 whys to solve a recurring technical issue.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So they kept running into this glitch, right? And at first, they thought it was a coding error.
But it wasn't.
Nope. They asked why 5 times, and they finally discovered that the root cause was actually a lack of proper training for their engineers on a new system.
Wow. So a simple training program could have saved them a whole lot of headaches.
It's a perfect example of how digging deeper can lead to more effective solutions. And ultimately, that's what the Lean Startup is all about, building a culture of learning and continuous improvement. It's about embracing uncertainty, testing assumptions, and adapting to the ever-changing market.
It's about being agile, data-driven, and always willing to ask why.
Exactly. It's about being a lean, mean learning machine.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Thanks so much for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about the Lean Startup.
And for our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this exploration of Eric Ries's groundbreaking work. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And often that first step involves embracing the unknown. So get out there, experiment, learn, and don't be afraid to pivot.